Hello. Today in my second podcast, I have the true pleasure of speaking with Doug Kimmelman, one of Blair's most transformative leaders and most impactful supporters. A proud father of 4 Blair graduates, Doug has contributed enormously to the life of the school as a parent, trustee, and longtime board chair.
I was at a New Jersey Devils hockey game, and the CEO of Goldman Sachs happened to be there sitting with 2 famous baseball players, Yogi Berra and Joe Morgan. I walked up to him. I said, Mr. Whitehead, an honor to meet you. My dream is to work at Goldman Sachs, is trying to get a summer job. He said, slide over, have a beer, hot dog. Thank God I could talk baseball, I could talk hockey. And he said, come to my office on Monday. And that went well, and they said, well, all we have left are muni bonds or utilities. I flipped a coin. I didn't know the difference. So I end up in the utility group. We're now the largest owner of power generation in the country.
It's no exaggeration to say that the generosity and vision of Doug and his late wife, Carol, have touched every aspect of student life at Blair. And beyond the more formal roles in which he's served since becoming a Blair parent in 2008, Doug's been a true friend and mentor to many of us on campus, myself included. I'm deeply grateful for the wisdom and perspective he's shared over the years, and so it's only fitting that he's joining me today to talk about his career, family, leadership, healthy living, and how he finds balance in the midst of it all, which was a word he impressed upon me when I first became head of school. So a big welcome to Doug. It's terrific to talk, and I'm grateful you made the time for this conversation. I know everyone listening will come away with new insights and an even greater appreciation for all you've accomplished in both your professional and personal life. So let's begin with an overview of your professional and personal journey. You grew up in New Jersey. I believe your father was the state's attorney general. You earned your BA in economics from Stanford and your MBA from Wharton. But after 22 years at Goldman Sachs, you founded Energy Capital Partners in 2005, and today you continue to lead the firm with remarkable energy and vision. Can you walk us all through your career path? Did you ever think of following in your father's footsteps? What first drew you into the finance and energy sectors, and what's helped shape your trajectory along the way?
Well, Peter, first of all, thank you. It's just wonderful for you and I to have a chat, podcast or otherwise. It's good that you and I are chatting. And,
I love it.
Yeah, good.
And you said before we started that this is your second podcast, and you tried to get credit with your kids on your first, but it didn't work so well.
I don't think I'm growing older, and I try to stay cool and relevant, mainly to my four kids. And I figured, that I took them to a Taylor Swift concert. I thought that made me relevant and funny.
I think so.
But I did a podcast. I think that's pretty good. But no credibility. So hopefully this one will. All
right, we're gonna spice it up a little bit somewhere.
We're gonna spice it up.
Okay.
But anyway, well, thank you for. I'm so excited to do this, and number 2, this is the second one, and my good friend Ashley going first. Yeah. So Ashley set the bar very high. So we'll see how I do today. But yes, I am a Jersey guy. Very proud of that. Born in lovely Irvington, and found my way to Newark, and found my way to public high school in Maplewood at Columbia High School. We'll maybe get to this later. My wife Carol was also public school. And we said, not in a million years will all kids go to private school.
Yep, we'll get to that.
Not in 10 million years will they go to boarding school. And lo and behold, my kids loved all their years. But I guess I thought I was good in math and science. I didn't know, but that's what I seemed to get a little better grades in Maplewood in high school. Somehow I went to Stanford. Back then there was no interview, but I got the college counselor had these pamphlets, and there were palm trees on the picture of the Stanford
We don't have
place.
those in Jersey.
No. And all my friends said, why would you go to Connecticut to college? I'm like, oh, that's Stanford. This is different. So it didn't quite have the name it did back then. But I got out there, and pre-med was the big thing in biology, because you're good at math and science, until organic chemistry nearly killed me. And I realized I'm not sure I like the sight of blood, so I don't know why I'm doing pre-med. So I shifted to econ. And I took a class in stock options. I won't get too detailed in markets, but I didn't have enough money to buy stocks, because 100 shares, $10 a share, that's $1,000. But you could buy an option on those 100 shares for maybe $50. So I wanted to understand these options, which they expire, and they're riskier and trickier, but more upside. I love this class. Somehow I ended up the next year teaching the class. I guess I loved it so much, and somehow ended up buying graph paper. By the way, there's no computers at this time. So my whole wall of my dorm room are graph papers, and I would graph stocks. And the precursor to CNBC was actually started in San Francisco financial news network. I had a little black and white TV. That was the only way I could get the tickers to
That's great.
see what was coming across. And I needed money to do these stock options. So I graded calculus papers, and they made a mistake at Stanford. You got paid based on the number of papers.
Give Doug a challenge and you're going to jump.
So I was up at 6 a.m. on my bicycle when the professor dropped in a bin the papers to be graded, and I wanted to grab as many as possible.
Sure.
I had a system all over my floor to grade these papers efficiently, and that's where I made my money to invest in stock options, and it worked, and I made money, and I bought a car by my
At what age was this?
My junior year. I'm like 19 or something like that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
19 or 20. But then I had an internship at the professor of the class. He was a broker at Merrill Lynch in Palo Alto. I got a part-time job there helping get data for the brokers. I'm like, this is so cumbersome of getting data of what stocks have low yields or high yields or what stocks have low P ratios. And, computers are starting, and there was one mainframe at Stanford and all these really smart, can I say nerdy computer guys. And I didn't understand that. So I got two other guys said, let's start a company and let's create computer software. Computer software didn't really exist. This is 1979. Microsoft wasn't public yet. And I went to these computer guys and said, can you write me code to screen for stocks in different ways? Because I have all the data from Merrill Lynch. And they said, we'll get in trouble if we use the Stanford computers. So I said, we got to get paid, and you got to get us computers. So somehow I started the company. It was called InnoVest.
So this was your first company?
My first company. I'm 19 or 20. And I got Merrill Lynch to put up cash, access to their data, cash, all of like $10,000. But I didn't have computers. And they said, go down to Mountain View. There's these guys in the garage, and maybe they'll cut in. So I went down there, cut a deal with them. They gave us 10 of these huge, ugly computers. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a company called Apple Computer.
Haven't heard that one. It always starts in a garage too, right?
Yeah, but they were the worst computers ever. They just broke, and in the back of my car, I'm driving them back and forth down to Mountain View to get them fixed. And so I had a crossroads. It was working. I didn't know, that this could be something big. But I remember saying, geez, should I stay with the risky route, or should I go to Wall Street and get the MBA? Back then, you needed an MBA to go to Wall Street. So I chickened out of the startup. But it's how I got into business school, because it's hard to go in at 21 years old with having not worked at a company, but I'd started one. And then I can tell you more about how I landed a job at Goldman Sachs. Very, very live. I was at a New Jersey Devils hockey game, and the CEO was there.
All right, let's hear it. So you're at the hockey game.
I couldn't get an interview.
Do you know who they're playing?
I don't, but they were the Colorado Rockies, but they came to New Jersey and became not the Colorado Rockies. That's the baseball team. Maybe the Avalanche or something. Like that.
But so they came to the Devils. Yep. You were at the stadium.
They became the Devils, and it was Brendan Byrne Arena back then. And the CEO of Goldman Sachs happened to be there sitting with two famous baseball players, Yogi Berra and Joe Morgan.
Heard of them. I
couldn't get an interview. And interviewing them was different. There was no internet. You would walk to the building with your resume. I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Whitehead, honored to meet you. My dream is to work at Goldman Sachs, is trying to get a summer job.
And you're 23, 24, Doug?
22.
22.
I was quick, and I was going early on this stuff. And he said, slide over, have a beer, hot dog. Thank God I could talk baseball. I could talk hockey. And he said, come to my office on Monday. And that went well. And they said, well, all we have left are muni bonds or utilities. I flipped a coin. I didn't know the difference. So I end up in the utility group. And we'll get to this. I guess we're now the largest owner of power generation in the country. I've been doing electricity for 43 years since then. So there you go.
Did you and Yogi share some good laughs together?
So these Yogi-isms, if there's a fork in the road, take it.
Yeah.
I'm in California. His line was, it gets dark early out there. So
that's great.
And nobody goes to that restaurant anymore. It's too crowded.
That's great.
He talks like that. He passed away a few years ago, but that was I'll never forget that.
Well, we'll circle back to baseball too. I love it. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about how you maintain focus and efficiency. I mean, you are the most responsive person that I know to email, to texts, and there's so many demands on your time, and it's incredible. And as you mentioned, Your company is the largest private owner of power generation in the U.S. You're constantly on the move. You travel the globe looking for funding and closing deals. But how do you maintain both the focus, the efficiency? How do you keep up your passion and energy? And what tips do you have for all of us who are trying to find this balance for the competing demands?
Well, I'll start with if you're lucky enough to have good genes, my mom will be 100 years old come June, and
unbelievable.
So maybe I have good genes.
You're so young.
I'm so young. I'm only halfway through, and with science going, maybe we're all going to live a lot longer. But it's leading a healthy, active lifestyle. Just on your responsiveness, the reason I get a lot of hundreds of emails a day, and you want to try to respond to everything quickly. One, just so that you're not up all night, get it out of the way. But you never know. 20 years from now, somebody may say, hey, I was nobody, and you replied to me thoughtfully, and something good comes of that. So, be nice, treat people with respect. You're not important. I'm not important. You're not important. We're all humans, and treat each other that way, and good things happen in life. But, I just try to stay very active. I've done some things on the health side. We'll get to, we had a sad event in our family that my wife Carol passed away about 8 years ago, and I had kind of a wake up call. Not that I was unhealthy, but I've got a lot of people that depend on me, from my kids, family, to all my work colleagues and my businesses. So why would I be so selfish as to not really focus on number one? So I became vegan 8 years ago, although my kids, especially my daughter, will say I'm a cheegan because she'll see me have something that might have some butter in it or a little cheese on it. But that's helped. I don't drink coffee, if you can believe that. I'm working on my green juice this morning.
It's great.
I found that the coffee I would crash in the middle of the day, and then I need some sugar to get me back up so I could keep doing my emails. I once a year go to Germany for stem cell. I have no idea if it does anything. It's my own stem cells that they mine. I like to say I use the disclaimer that they use in finance. If I say I don't know what I'm talking about, then I can tell you all my health things that I do. And I have no idea if they work. I don't know what I'm talking about, but maybe stem cell. I get my blood work. I obsess about my blood work 3 times a year and what nutrients I should be taking. My kids got me a cold plunge for the holidays on my roof. So cold plunge is amazing, even though I'm still a little chicken. I go from that to the infrared sauna. I do meditation. Somehow I can stand on my head doing yoga.
Well, it's funny. I remember when you're talking standing on your head, it was before a board meeting and I was in the gym at Blair and you were running laps around the track. And then the next thing I know, you're on the turf doing headstands. And I'm like, this is incredible. And this was like 10 years ago or something.
Well, the other trick I do is, I got the Oura ring. Some people have the Whoop, we all know. And if you, Peter Attia, Outlive, the book. Obviously, the number one is nutrition. And I think a vegan diet is a big, get the animal fat out of there. Active, you got to move. So instead of sitting in front of your computer all day, at the end of the day, I try to have those last calls. I'll go for a walk. I'll walk home while I'm doing a conference call. So do your calls while you're walking and moving. A stand-up desk could be a very helpful thing. I tried to not schedule any calls before 10 a.m. We're 10 a.m. here, even though I'm out on the West Coast, so that I can exercise and keep that time, available. But it's eating, it's staying active, it's sleep, which is some reason I don't need more than 5 and a half.
You don't
or 6
I feel
hours.
like you don't get a lot of that.
No, I was lucky. I seem fine with it. I have the Oura ring to try to convince me to do 7, but I can never get to 7. And then it's just no stress. And I was just born. I have this talk with my mother that worries all the time. I'm like, what are you worried about? Yesterday is gone. Don't think about yesterday. And stress is going to do you no good. And so, you got to have a mindset that there's solutions to every problem out there. Don't worry about things. I think worrying takes years off of people's lives. And surround yourself by good people. Keep a positive attitude. And there's a solution out there to the problem. So there's my mindset, Peter. Works for me.
And I distinctly remember many calls where I was probably stressed, and you said a version of what you just said to me, and I'm sure, and all of the people you interact with, that calming leadership really makes a difference in terms of not just how successful you've
Yeah.
been, but how those around you rise up.
I say to people, when things are really good, I'm sorry, but they're going to get bad. And when things are really bad, they're going to get good.
Yeah.
So you can kind of keep that mindset and keep yourself a little level. Don't get too high. Don't get too low.
Well, sort of along that line in talking maybe a little bit about burnout, you've been in the investment world, as you just told me, since, Stanford, and you continue to bring just such passion and energy to your work. So what keeps you engaged, especially at this part of your career? I think many people would have retired a couple times over, and yet if I know you as well as I think I do, you're working just as hard as you did 2 decades ago. And I'm just curious how your sense of purpose or motivation has evolved over time.
Yeah, I think I'm probably working harder than ever, but I'm not a fan of retirement. And I see too many people that retire and things tend to go a little bit sideways. I don't think I've ever been bored or lonely in my life. And so surround yourself by good people. And that's hard to do. Maybe that's one of the hardest things, is to surround yourself with good people. So, who's in our firm and is really important, and just the values that my kids have and now their spouses and significant others, good people. And I like people. I like interacting. I like helping, whether it's on the philanthropic side or whether it's on the business side. I like motivating others. I like every day is different. I don't know. I said, I'm going to have 20 problems today. I don't know what they are yet. But to me, that's invigorating, because we're going to tackle those things and get to solve them. And, I'll be working. I'll have my calls on today, but I'm out in California. There's a golf tournament out here. I couldn't play because I got to get to London. So my boys took my spot. So I'm going to watch my boys play golf while I'll have my headphones in. So maybe it feels like I'm retiring, but I'm still working. But it's not so much, maybe we'll talk about careers. But a lot of people spend, and especially, young kids, I have to find my passion. And they spend so much time trying to figure out their passion, rather than whatever it is in front of you, just dig into it and get really deep into that. And your passion actually might be working hard and, working with people that you like to work with. My world is electricity these days, big for AI. I can't say I have a love affair with electricity. Sure. I joke, I've never seen my product, but I like working hard. I like working with others and having fun every day. So it's just a mindset. So I keep going, and I'm lucky I have my mom's genes, so that keeps me going.
Well, and again, the enthusiasm you have for not just your work, but I think really what you said, people, and boosting them up is certainly infectious. But another,
I'll interrupt you. One of my highlights of my time in the Blair community,
please,
is the friendships that I made with your team and the faculty.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made some great friendships, and if I say what was the highlight of Blair, it was, getting to, I won't list the names of people because I'll leave someone off and get in trouble, but it was those friendships of just great people that inspired me to help out more and work harder. So there you have it.
Well, and
enjoy it.
And it's lasting, evidenced by this conversation today, and we'll get to a little bit more about you being back on campus. But I'd love to just sort of pivot a little bit. You mentioned baseball, and we're talking, I know you played, and you're passionate, and your boys played, and, we talked about Yogi Berra, but would love to hear a little bit about your journey to working with the Marlins and being part owner. And, you've been kind enough to host receptions there for Blair, and that's been fun. And I'd be curious both your journey with the Marlins, but also if you've learned any lessons from that you bring to either your personal life or the energy sector.
Yep. Well, you said I played, and my kids might listen to this. So let's just say I was the shortest first baseman ever in Little League. Usually you want the tall guy, but I could catch a ball. And I think the last time I played with my kids, I pulled my hamstring running to first base. So let's not talk about my playing abilities too much. But I did enjoy watching a lot of Blair baseball, and my nephew Teddy and my son Tommy were part of where 4 years in a row they won the state championship.
Yeah, that was a legacy.
That was pretty good. So I do love baseball. Coached Little League for 17 years. My boys love baseball. Any once in a while, if it's a good game, or if they have maybe somehow a vegan option. She'll like that. So it was always part of our family and just
Sure.
enjoyment getting together. So as I said, my wife passed away 8 years ago, and there's no book on how to manage that as a father, as a parent. I read in the New York Post that Derek Jeter and Jeb Bush are buying the Miami Marlins. So I said to my boys, hey, should I stick my nose into this one? They're like, do it.
Yeah.
And I was more thinking this will be a great family distraction somehow if we can figure out how to get involved and pull this off. I just thought it would be a small involvement. I knew Jeb Bush a little bit. I said, do you need help raising money? He goes, oh my God, I have no idea how to put this deal together. So the next thing you know, I was working with him. And then the next thing you know, Derek Jeter was part of the group. And in our family, Derek Jeter is God. And so that was unbelievable. I'll never forget the first when he called me for some help. Scotty was 13 years old at the time, and we're sitting in his room reading or doing some homework, and Derek Jeter calls. Well, that's a life-altering event.
Oh.
And we figured out how to structure it. We figured out how to raise money and put a group together, and we won. That being said, baseball doesn't have a salary cap, which means there's this thing called expenses are greater than revenues. You actually want it to be the other way around.
Sure.
So people think sports is, oh my God, so much money, the value of these franchises. But on a cash flow basis, these businesses can be challenging. But at baseball, the only thing I'd say, it's about people. Anything you do in life is about people. It's about culture and working together. And you find that probably the best teams in sport, it's the culture that they create of that organization. A winning culture. I look at who's at Mendoza, the quarterback in Indiana that won, and his family, his story. I think his mom has MS. I just look at the camaraderie of that team of that kind of thing. So that's been the biggest challenge. Baseball players come from all different parts of the world, and bringing them together. Analytics coming in, which is a balancing act because it maybe runs counter to culture if it's just all about analytics. Realizing that you're not in the business of baseball, you're in the business of entertainment. And some folks don't kind of grasp that you're trying to put fans in the seats. And we just had the Winter Classic in Miami. The Rangers.
And there's some Blair families there.
Yeah, it was great. We had a tennis Alcaraz. So do other things in your venue. They do great up at Fenway Park, even though I hate the Red Sox. Is at Lansdowne Street, where people come and hang out long before the game, long after the game. So trying to reinvent us as an entertainment hub, entertainment destination. So it's been a fun, challenging journey. That's a small part of my life, but an interesting part.
Well, and I'll say there's nothing quite like watching a game. And I remember being in your living room with you and your boys and watching the Marlins play and commenting right before every pitch what's going to be thrown, and then discussing it, and then having healthy debates. I mean, it's fascinating when you guys break down a pitch, let alone an inning or a game.
He doesn't like to get any shout outs, but my youngest Scotty is an encyclopedia on baseball. Like
yes,
he
is.
Believe. And so we'll be following his career, not as a player, but probably as a journalist or a commentator would be my bet on.
I can't wait.
This. Yeah.
So going back a little bit to energy and sharing that you were recently featured on Fox and CNBC discussing the impact of AI on the energy sector, particularly the surging electricity demand and the urgent need for reinvestment in infrastructure and the critical importance of reliable power. And we're talking a lot about AI at Blair. I know a lot of people across the globe are talking about implications of AI. And I'm just curious how AI is changing the landscape of the energy industry and what opportunities as well as challenges do you see emerging as a result?
Yeah, maybe I'll take a little a different approach into this. I would say one of the biggest challenges our nation and the world faces is the $38 trillion of debt and the enormous budget deficit that the United States has. And if the United States economy does not do well, the global economy does not do well, and that hurts everyone's quality of life. And so we got to get a handle on this. You can't cut your way, unfortunately, out of these deficits. There's too many expenditures that are just set in stone. So you got to grow your way out of it. So what a gift from heaven, whether it's this administration or any administration, a gift from heaven that this AI drops in the lap, and it's a little bit of a race between China and the U.S. to build this out. The capital spending is in the trillions, right? The spending on the compute power, on the servers, the spending on the data centers, the spending on the power generation to create the electricity to service these data centers, and importantly, the natural gas production, which is the backbone of power generation. So you've got, $500 billion a year being spent. You've got the president, he said in Davos yesterday, 18 trillion of new investment coming into the U.S. economy. This is all largely AI. The U.S. is hitting a GDP growth rate that we haven't seen in ages, perhaps as high as 5%. At 5% GDP growth, that we can reduce the deficit, we can pay down debt. But over half of that GDP growth is AI. So I start from the vibrancy of the U.S. economy, and not everyone's an economist, but your life is better if we have a vibrant economy, is dependent on this AI build out. And this is an industrial revolution that this country has not seen in 75 years. And it's real and it's happening. Now, we can all debate how AI will be used. When you talk to the medical profession, it's just incredible of what's going to be done to diagnose and treat.
Sure.
And where I can just take my blood work and throw it right in online in AI, and I'll have my results and my what I should take, medications and supplements and all that kind of stuff. But just detecting disease and all of that. But then there's some negatives in terms of, are there going to be job losses and could it be used in nefarious ways? But I believe it's here to stay. I believe it's a technological and industrial revolution. No electricity, though. No electricity, no AI. And we are massively short electricity for all of a sudden the demand that this all has. We can't steal electricity from the grid and hurt the consumer with high electricity prices that you face in New Jersey. So there'll be a lot of build out of new power generation. Maybe we'll have a little new nuclear renaissance one of these days to get there. But capital spending is a good thing for the economy, and I take it that way. I think it's going to create more jobs and more efficiencies and more profitability and just more opportunity.
Thank you. And again, that optimistic outlook is something that, is what I love about being in your presence and talking with you. I mean, it is inspiring to hear you talk about all these different sectors. But I want to go back to a little bit of what you were saying with Carol and you first exploring Blair. And both of you did not go to independent schools, let alone boarding schools. And you've been wonderful about staying in touch with Blair and doing Society of Skeptics and headlining our finance summits. But back in 2007, 2008, when you were first looking at Blair for Annie, I'm just curious, what made it fit for your family? What made you and Carol sort of say, hey, we're actually going to take this plunge?
Well, it was all Annie, our oldest. And she said, I don't like the school where I am now. I won't get into those details, but she didn't like it. And she heard of this place, Blair. I vaguely had heard the name, didn't know where it was or anything about it. Please take me out there. And as I said earlier, my wife and I said in 10 million years, our kids would not go to a boarding school. That'll never happen. But we showed up with much trepidation. What's a boarding school? And what is this? And this seems very scary. But all right, Annie wants to give it. She wants to find out. So we showed up, and these two people named Chan and Moni were standing there waiting for us. I'm like, all right, if my daughter has to be somewhere else, I want these two people responsible for her because they care and they're genuine. So maybe I use the word genuine. Everybody I met at Blair was genuine, and nobody took themselves too seriously. Nobody's like, oh, we're a fancy boarding school. Mm-hmm. Genuine, caring people. And every person we met as we went through our tour were just genuine, caring people. And we just felt comfortable. This is a safe place. And maybe I can say I didn't want my that was our first. I don't want my relationship with my kids to be do your homework and clean your room. It's nice that somebody else would have that, do your homework and clean your room. And
absolutely.
We could focus on a deeper relationship on more things that mattered. So a wonderful journey with wonderful people and wonderful mentors and wonderful friendships. And all my three boys then wanted to follow in Annie's footsteps. And strangely, I'm going to say the bonds of the kids they went to school with and the bonds with, because two of Robert and Annie got married this year, and a lot of Blair folks in and around that. Those ties stay very strong because of the quality of the people, the humility of the people, the values, the culture, genuine people. You just don't find that in many places. And there's some kind of secret sauce on that was it the little place on the hill or something?
You got it. Yourselves? Yeah. Yes.
So that's why, and one of the best things we've ever done. And my kid, we were talking about Blair last night of the change to the campus, and I don't know that they're going to recognize it. I don't think Annie's been back there in a while, but it's incredible what you've accomplished. So we'll be back.
Well, and I'll say what we collectively have accomplished, because you and Carol and your family's played a very large role in that. And that's a little bit of what I wanted to pivot to is, Carol soon joined the board after Annie matriculated, and then you became board chair soon after that and held that position for a decade. And over 15 years, your family has supported countless initiatives that have shaped the campus experience, student, faculty, staff life. So why has giving back to Blair, philanthropy and in other ways, been such a priority for you?
Well, it comes down just to what I said. We not just like the experience, we like the people. And in life, I think you have an obligation to leave things better than you found them. How lucky were we that generations before, whether it was Jack Bogle or Bill Timken and others, had created this incredible institution, this campus. And so there's a responsibility where they say time, treasure, and talent. It's not always about money. And we tried to do our best to throw into all three of those back to Blair, because we were fortunate to show up to this institution that somebody else created and nurtured over the years. So leave it better than you found it. It's as simple as that. Carol was an educator. When I met her, she was an elementary school teacher in a rough part of Los Angeles. And so education's always been a priority of give the kids the tools so that they can make society a better place and they can make themselves a better person. So an easy thing to support. And I really believe things in charity and philanthropy go way beyond writing a check. Writing a check is one thing, but rolling up your sleeves and getting involved is maybe a more valuable, harder thing to do. So no matter who you are or where you come from or what your means are, there's an avenue to help make things better. And we just were happy to be part of that community and try to make it better in a lot of different ways, not just by having nicer, newer buildings, but by spreading the culture, spreading the word, which helps in terms of applications coming in and maybe having some ideas on curriculum to mix it up a little bit on some things. So I say thank you, and thank you to others at Blair for embracing our family and allowing us to be a part of it. And hopefully we left a few little grains of good things for our years there.
Well, Doug, your leadership and involvement has been instrumental. And not only were you on campus often in a leadership capacity, you were on campus often as a father. And I just, one thing you haven't done is sort of written the How to Move Your Kid In and Out book, because I remember you telling me, carrying water coolers, like you had it down to a science by Scotty's last year.
Well, 4 kids, each 4 years of boarding school, each 4 years of college. By the time they got to senior years of college, Dad, why are you here? Go away. But I am good at figuring out of turning that box of a ugly room into a beautiful living space in 45 minutes or less. So I'm your guy with hammer and all that. I did break through some rules of putting some things on the wall.
Listen, I turned the other way. As long as it wasn't graph paper so that they weren't doing stuff.
Yes. But those were enjoyable times. And thank God there a few of the dorms had elevators, because that was those stairs carrying stuff.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about Lulu's Place. This is a passion project you've been working on with your children, and it's an extraordinary tribute to Carol's life and legacy as both a gifted athlete and educator. And it makes sports and education more accessible through a transformational youth center that you're building near LAX. And I was recently looking through the construction updates on the website and was truly wowed by the scale and support behind this vision. And I'd love to hear you and I have talked a lot about it, what Lulu's Place will offer, where things currently stand in the development process. It's really exciting to see. And I know it hasn't been easy. You've hit some roadblocks that, of course, as you say, you have 20 problems and you hit them head on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're honoring an incredible mom, incredible woman. When I met Carol a long time ago, I don't know, 1988, something like that. No, Yeah, that's about right. She was an elementary school teacher, South Central LA, rough part of town. Love those kids more than anything. She gravitated more towards third grade because she said by the time fifth grade came along, the influence of gangs and drugs and broken homes, it was kind of a dead end for these kids. And she would bring me in. I guess we'd break the rules of LA Unified and the union. She wanted me to teach math because she said I was a little better at it, and I was only 10, 15 minutes away, and would come down there, and the kids in the class, because I'd have my tie on, my Wall Street guy, and it was like, why is he wearing his church clothes, was
It's
usually
great.
the comment. But I got a firsthand view of how much she loved those kids, and the challenge, and the sadness of what will end up for so many of these kids. So that was a passion. She loved LA. God knows why she loved LA, but I won't get in trouble for too much for saying that, because there's wonderful kids and wonderful opportunities in the Olympics coming. But loved LA. I'm a New Jersey guy, so it took me a little while to adjust to
Sure.
that style. But then active, healthy lifestyle. So how do we do something in LA for those kids that combine education, active, healthy lifestyle? So hardest thing I've ever done, but certainly the most rewarding. And myself and my kids put our head together, and what would this look like? So we're building the largest nonprofit community athletic and academic campus in the Western U.S. It's some days I say I wish Carol was born in Iowa, because it would have cost 10 million and taken 10 months, but this is going to cost $170 million and take 8 years. Not easy to get permits in LA, not easy to give your money away, even if you're doing good things. But us folks from New Jersey, we get things done.
Yes, you do.
No, I could use another word in there, GSD, some say, but we get things done.
Maria Sabatier, our board chair, current board chair, she says that often as well. That's the two of you are kindred spirits in that way.
Yeah, so it's been challenging, but it's been rewarding. So we're partnering with Tiger Woods and his foundation and his philanthropic work, STEM education, give kids the learning tools. Not everyone's going to be a great golfer, but there's so many great careers out there if you have the tools. And then partnering with the United States Tennis Association. This will be the biggest community tennis center in the West. We're now partnering with the LA Chargers, the football team. We'll have a flag football facility, 4 soccer fields, fitness. Annie will be happy that we're going to have a dog park, as well as a little bit of an organic garden to teach nutrition. We're 30% complete construction. Will open in May of 27, in time for the Olympics, which will be out there in 28. Couldn't afford 50 acres of land, so we were very fortunate to form a partnership where they had excess land at the airport LAX. So we're kind of off of the North Runway in the town of Westchester. And now I'm having to build staff, and I'm sure I'm going to have to get some consultation from folks at Blair of how do I build the right staff for a learning lab. This is not a school we're building. You don't want to compete with LA Unified in the union. This is a supplement, after school weekend programs around athletics and around academics. So very rewarding. And look forward to having many of you out there for the ribbon cutting in about 15
we'll be there.
months.
It's incredible, yeah. Doug. It's incredible. As we're wrapping up, you continue to stay connected to Blair through a variety of ways, but one is serving on our investment committee as an honorary trustee. And of course, your insights have been invaluable. And I'd love to just hear, before we close, your perspective on the current state of the market. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but what advice would you have for just the average investor from your years of experience and the vantage point that you have?
Well, it's funny. Annie is expecting her first
Congratulations.
In April. Don't call me grandpa. That makes me feel old.
Not a chance. So
we sat down and we had a discussion about investing, because she's now thinking about, her youngster coming along. And I walked her through this thing called risk and return, and call it this efficient frontier. You don't want all your money in the riskless asset cash, but you also don't want all of your money in venture capital and startups. And you want to blend. So you want some lower risk things in, nice interest rates, at least in money markets now. We were 5%, but 4% for some of it, and owning some bonds. If interest rates go down, they'll do a little better, but safety. And then we're out to public stocks, and then we're to hedge funds, and then we're to private equity, and then we're to investments in some startup companies, and maybe some Anthropics and OpenAI type companies. And it's a blending. It's a portfolio construction is the most important thing of it. And the U.S. economy is pretty exciting. Yes, we look globally into developing parts of the world, but boy, the U.S. economy, what I, talked about GDP growth at 5% and getting our deficits under control. And we've got tax cuts, the impact of those that are kicking in, and low interest rates. And so I'm excited about the U.S. economy. And therefore, I think it's a pretty good place. And hopefully, those students at Blair that are thinking about this world of AI, that there's going to be a lot of interesting new companies, new technologies, new startups to get involved with, and therefore a lot of investing opportunities around that. So there's a few seconds of wisdom on that.
No, that's great. And I know you have very little free time, Doug, but when and if you do, I'd just be curious, what do you like to read or podcasts to listen to, or do you ever watch anything on Netflix?
Well, I do love Landman. I haven't started the second season because energy is part of that, and Billy Bob Thornton is very, very good. I want to see. I don't go out and see movies that often, but we have a ping pong table at home, and over the holidays, a lot of ping pong, and Scotty and Robert are usually the champions. Tommy's going to get mad with me for saying that, but this movie, Marty Supreme, I gotta see this movie. So that's out there. So I stock market. This Andrew Ross Sorkin has this book 1929 talking about the crash.
Sure.
I'd rather go back. He's a newcomer. He wasn't anywhere close to that, but John Kenneth Galbraith has a much better book, in my opinion, and the Great Crash of 1929. So I would go back up and read that one. It's a quicker, easier read. And then everybody's talking about electricity, and actually Thomas Edison did start a company called General Electric, and the whole history of how we electrified this nation. There's a book, if you're a power nerd, it's called The Merchant of Power, which is about Thomas Edison and his disciple Samuel Insull. So those would be a few. I wish I had time to do more reading.
No, of course. But
the last thing I'll just say on that very quickly is where you get knowledge these days. Turn off the television. It's too politicized, and put down the newspapers because everybody's got an angle. Talk to people.
It's great.
And talk to people, and that's where you're going to get your information, and debate things among yourselves rather than being, I'll say, just polluted from one side, another side. Everybody's got an angle of what you see in the media. So to try to find other avenues to get smart.
Well, I'll share with you, that is our bread and butter at Blair, as you well know. It's in-person interactions and those robust conversations happening all the time. So as we close, you are a very talented golfer. You mentioned Tiger is helping with Lulu's Place. And, I'd love to hear, has he given you any tips over the years? You've golfed with me. I certainly could use some tips, but...
Well, my golfing problem is my two boys, Robert and Tommy, are better than me, and it pains me to say that. And Scotty may even have a better swing. And so I'm like having to change my swing because I need more distance to keep up with these guys. So that's difficult. But I remember I had a friend that just said they couldn't get out of a bunker. And we were in a parking lot with Tiger Woods. And I said, Tiger, you got to help really quickly. I know we're in a parking lot here. We don't have sand. But how do you get out of the bunker? And his best tip, which stuck with me and stuck with them, and if you're a righty, think of just sliding your left hand under the ball, right? Because we always think of the turn, you just think of that right hand. But if you think of just your, palm down, slide that left hand under the ball. So if you just think of that, and it just kind of helps slide that club over. So now you're going to get out of the sand, Peter. So there you go. Well,
listen, I get into the sand quite a bit. So this is, I'm going to put it right to work. Doug, thank you. This is my second podcast. As we talked at the beginning, the first one was with Ashley Thompson talking about mush, which you're an investor in. And I know you and Ashley are close friends.
I will have some today for sure.
Well, this conversation has been deeply meaningful, and as expected, I've come away with many new insights and a real appreciation for everything that you do and that you've given to Blair. So thank you. Thank you for your time, your wisdom, your continued generosity, but most importantly, your friendship to me and many of us at Blair. It means a great deal, and looking forward to hearing how the boys do in the tournament today.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Really enjoyable, and thank you to all my friends at Blair. You guys are the best.
Be well.